So I want to talk about gang stalking tactics and how really no matter what the TI says or does, the gang stalkers will find a way to judge them as wrong and to get people around them to judge them as wrong, okay? There are very many things I've discovered that actually are completely opposite, and yet people judge both sides as wrong. Okay, I'm going to give some examples here. So, for example, there's this whole thing now about obedience, isn't there? Because of the COVID vax. There's this whole thing about obedience and how, people who are obedient are just, the devil incarnate kind of thing. And here's the thing, these people, and my dad was one of them, all right? I didn't take that vax, but my dad did. And he was a very intelligent man. He was a professor, university professor of physics. His students were actually PhD students, all right? So he's a very intelligent man, all right? And yet he took the vaccine even despite all the stuff that I sent him and all the warnings, And I'll tell you why that is. It's because, look, this is Prince getting a little bit aggressive again. Baby, don't do that. No. That is because, he grew up in a time where people believed in law and order, and that the government had their best interests at heart. These are the people that were children in the war, all right? And it's a belief in right and wrong, and none of us knew that there were these evil satanic controllers behind everything. Who knew? I didn't know, right? So that's what I'm saying. On the one hand, if you're obedient, then you'll be demonized. And then on the other hand, of course, if you're not and you break the law or something or do something bad, and which, by the way, they, when you're a TI, they will most definitely mind control you to do that. Or if they can't get you by mind control or even by hypnosis, they will just make a lie up and make people believe it. I mean, that's how it is. So you can't really win. There's nothing you can do. If you're a TI, there's nothing you can do, because they will make you wrong no matter what. All right. And they will always make themselves right. See if I can give another example. Like, for example, here's another example of the two polarities. When I stood up for myself against these trolls, they were trolls at that time. They were trolls on, they were gang stalkers, but they were trolling me on a site called Interpels, and I've spoken about this before. And these were sex traffickers. These were horrible people. And when I stood up for myself, I got called a bully. All right. Now, not everybody on there is a sex trafficker, obviously, but the ones who were the traffickers were the ones just making people interpret everything that I said and did as something bad or sinister, or that I was a bully, or stuff like that. And they had people kind of they'd, I don't know, paid or coerced or something people to come and pretend to be nice, but they weren't being nice. They were trolling. All right. And Yeah. So if you stand up for yourself, then you'll get called a bully. Ah, but if you don't stand up for yourself, that's even worse, because then they'll say, oh, there's something psychologically wrong with her, that she's not defending herself. So we, because we're such good, wonderful people, we're going to help her with that. All right? Do you get what I'm saying? Uh, and I do not understand why the people are listening to them, because the obvious answer is that they are interfering where they shouldn't be interfering, and they are violating people's privacy and human rights. It's as simple as that. That's what they're doing. And actually, it's a form of domestic terrorism, and they're using forms of psychological torture and physical torture. These are war crimes, okay? Yet somehow they convince all these people that the problem is the individual TI, There's a whole group of them, and oh yes, all the problems of the world are caused by this one individual TI. There's a lot of this, actually, they are affecting society with this a lot too. I've noticed this whole business of narcissism, that labeling people as narcissist. Have you heard of that? Now, here's what I know from my experience. This whole thing of narcissism, it's never just one person, all right? The problem is never one person. And actually, it's never two people either. There's always third-party interference, and that is what's causing conflict in every single situation, in my opinion, okay? And investigate it for yourself, but that's what I have found to be true. And oh baby, I think he has an upset stomach. Actually, their food is running out, and I've been giving them probably a bit too much bread. Maybe yeast is not good for chickens too much. Anyway, and I'm very worried about this. This whole thing of they're gonna somehow make being a narcissist against the law or something. Now, this is just a label, an invented label, and we live in a time where anybody can be mind controlled to appear to be anything. So this is a very dangerous thing, all right? And on the one hand, yes, I do agree that people, groups of people that engage in this kind of thing, coercive control and all of that, absolutely. That's a RICO crime, and we already have laws against that, actually. It's conspiracy against rights, it's civil conspiracy. There's lots of laws against this, okay? But this idea of labeling individuals and then, being able to prosecute them just based on a label that is just arbitrary, really, and that can be faked, that is very dangerous as far as I'm concerned. That's very, very dangerous. So we were talking about gangstalking tactics. Now this is another very dangerous thing that's going on. Somehow they are literally trying to normalize this torture. I mean, it's torture what they do, and they're trying to normalize it, and they're trying to pretend that that they are somehow curing people. They're curing, like, for example, people with addictions suddenly don't have addictions after they've been gangstalked, in other words, tortured for 10 years, and they're literally trying to pretend it's therapy. I mean, we know this from psychiatry. They have legitimized torture. case in point would be electric shock therapy, for example. And I would also argue that exposure therapy is also torture, and so is CBT, is that what it's called? I can't remember now. Cognitive behavioral therapy. If you're doing that, this is what gangstalkers are doing to TIs without their permission, okay? Without their consent. That is behavior modification, that is a violation of human rights. I don't want my behavior modified, thank you. I mean, they're trying to make me do all... You see, they're trying to pretend they're doing something good. For example, I'll give you an example. They are... one of the things that they tried to make me do is become a lawyer. Now, I'm not an academic. Okay, I don't have the head for that. It's not something that fascinates me so that I could spend hours doing that. I'm not actually all that good at reading for long periods of time. It's just not, I need a lawyer who's good at it, who chose it because they like it, and who knows their job. But they are, basically this is coercion because, of course, they've gotten to the lawyers, they've gotten to everybody so that nobody is replying to any of my messages. I'm being ostracized, you see. So they're basically trying to force me to do it myself. That is what they're trying to do. I mean, that is a violation of human rights. And you can say, oh, but what they're doing is they're making you do something good. Yeah, well, let's talk about the vaccines then, because they were telling us that the vaccines were going to save our lives. And that's why they had to be obligatory, all right? You can't force anybody to do anything. That's a violation of human rights, period. Because it's your opinion against theirs whether it's good or not, okay? And everyone at the time of that pandemic thought, everyone was thinking, oh yes, the vaccines are going to save us, aren't they? And what happened? That turned out to be a lie. And that's why it is very important to protect freedom of choice. And this country in particular, that is the number one thing, isn't it? This is the land of the free, right? And freedom must be protected above all other things. It's not, oh, yeah, freedom's all right, but unless there's a pandemic and then, we're going to be forced to have vaccines. Come on. Freedom has to be completely freedom, all right? And I don't mean freedom to go and, break the law or anything. Obviously, that there are laws and that's what they're there for. But, don't interfere with people's right to choose their own careers, to choose how they want to live. These are violations of human rights and absolutely against the Constitution. And that means illegal because the Constitution is the highest law of the land, okay? So what they're doing, these gang stalkers, because it's all smoke and mirrors and trickery, as I've said before, they choose people with good qualities, with certain good qualities to start with. Now, I happen to be a person who's pretty strong, okay? And so what they did, I'll tell you exactly what they did, because they are now pretending that, oh, this wonderful gang stalking therapy is making me resilient, all right? This is absolute BS. I was a strong person to start with. They mind controlled me to appear to be pretty pathetic. Actually, I do have to say that. At a certain point, they were making me like cry all the time. And look, I do, I'm a crier. I do cry, but they were making me just appear to be pretty kind of weak and pathetic, frankly. And then, you see, they used that as an excuse to pretend that they were helping me to build resilience and to make me stronger and that kind of thing. What's actually happened is that they've taken a person who was strong to start with and they've completely traumatized them. And here I'm going to talk in general now about about all TIs. Here's what they do, because they use these tactics on everybody. So imagine, it doesn't actually matter which way it goes. They will make it to their advantage, right? They'll make it mean that they were right. And I'll give you an example of that. So they take a person, let's use this example, a person who's pretty strong to start with, and they torture them with gang stalking, terrorize them, torture them, make everybody ostracize them, make them homeless, make sure that they're destitute and they're facing starvation and stuff, what they're doing to me, persecuting them in every possible way, all of that, illegally arresting them, all of that, till they're absolutely traumatized and not wanting to live anymore now. So what do? If that person actually then tries to commit suicide, they will then say, oh, we told you they were depressed. We were trying to help them. Oh, if only we could have gotten to them first and we could have saved them. All right, that's what they're doing. And then if by some miracle you don't suicide, they say, look, you see, we were right. This gang stalking therapy made them stronger. Do you see what I'm saying? These are tricksters. These are confidence tricksters. And literally the world will not be a nice place to live if we let them get away with these things, okay? And the trick that the veil that they're pulling over people's eyes is that they really make people believe that there's something wrong with the victim, with the TI. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with any of us. We're normal people, And here's the point about that. It can happen to anybody. Because this is the myth. This is what makes people join in the gang stalking, is that they think that they're ridding society, that they're justly punishing somebody who's been really bad, or that they're ridding society of an evil or something like that. And it's absolutely a lie. It's absolutely a lie. What they're doing is that they are torturing and persecuting innocent people to death, is what they're doing. That is what they're doing. Anyway, I just had to put that out, the gang stalking tactics. They've brought a little screamer. A long time ago, I think I did a video about this, a long time ago, they sensitized me to this very high-pitched screaming. But I don't think it's just that. I think they're actually doing something to my inner ear as well to make me more sensitive, because it happens with whistling as well, but not all kinds of whistling, but only certain pitches. I'm not sure, but they're doing something, I think, to my inner ear to sensitize me. And periodically, you see, I was quiet, so I don't know if I don't know if this has picked up that sound, but it's very high-pitched child scream, very, very high-pitched, and they know exactly the pitch, and they periodically bring a child that will do that, and then, whoever the adult is with them will do whatever it is, tickle them, or whatever it is that makes them scream like that, or maybe just tell them to do it, I don't know. But involving children in gang stalking, that's really low. That is corrupting an innocent, and I would call that child abuse. And also, I'm going to say this: any child that is taking part in gang stalking, it's the parent that needs to be prosecuted. That's what needs to happen. Okay, you see, there it goes again. Okay, I'm going to end this video.